All right, let's talk about 2026. Because in Formula One, they aren't just changing a few rules, they are literally tearing up the entire rulebook and starting from scratch. We're talking about one of the biggest technical resets in the history of the sport. It's a total reinvention of the cars, the engines, and maybe even the racing itself. You hear quotes like this from the top brass, and you might think, yeah, sure. But this time, it's for real. The FIA, along with all the teams, is trying to build a car for the future. This isn't just a facelift, it's a complete architectural reset. We're talking everything from what's under the hood to the very way these incredible machines slice through the air. So, what's the big idea behind all this change? Well, it all comes down to what the FIA is calling the nimble car concept. If you've been watching F1 for a while, you've seen it. The cars have been getting heavier and bigger, almost like boats. The 2026 rules, they're slamming the brakes on that trend. The goal is a machine that's lighter, shorter, and way more responsive. And it's all for one reason, to give us more of that intense wheel-to-wheel action we all love.
Okay, so what really makes these new cars so different? Well, this whole revolution is basically built on two game-changing pillars: a brand new way of thinking about aerodynamics and a completely radical reimagining of the hybrid power unit.
First things first, say goodbye to DRS as we know it. For the first time ever in F1, these cars are going to have fully active aerodynamics. Think of it like a plane's wings. When the car hits a corner, the wings will pop up into a high downforce Z mode to give it maximum grip. But then on the straights, the driver can flick a switch, flatten those wings into a low drag X mode, and just fly. And here's the real kicker. Everybody can use it on every single lap. That changes everything. Now, let's look at the heart of the beast, the power unit. The biggest news, the MGU-H, that super complex, super expensive part of the engine, is gone. That right there makes things simpler and cheaper, opening the door for new manufacturers. In its place, we're getting this wild 50-50 split in power. The good old V6 combustion engine is actually getting smaller, while the power from the battery has almost tripled to a massive 350 kilowatts. This huge focus on electric power is exactly why you're seeing huge names like Audi and Ford jumping back into the sport. When you put the numbers side by side, you really see just how dramatic this whole thing is. The new cars are 30 kilos lighter. That's a big deal. They're also 20 centimeters shorter and 10 centimeters narrower. You combine that smaller, lighter frame with that insane 50-50 power split and a switch to 100% sustainable fuels, and what you have is a completely different beast on the track. Seriously, this isn't just an evolution, it's a full-blown revolution. So, that's all the theory. But how do these revolutionary cars actually work in the real world? Well, the very first private shakedown test in Barcelona gave us our first peek and, you guessed it, our first taste of some real drama. For Ferrari, you couldn't have asked for a better start to the new era. They showed up in wet, tricky conditions, and both Charles Leclerc and the new guy, Lewis Hamilton, had a super smooth, productive day. For Hamilton to say the car was reliable right out of the box, well, that's exactly the kind of thing you dream of hearing when the rules change this much. But, while Ferrari was just cruising along, their biggest rival was, well, in the wall. Red Bull's second day of testing got cut short when driver Ishaq Hadjar had a big crash in the final corner. The team boss, Laurent Mekies, tried to put a brave face on it, but let's be real, losing precious track time with a brand new car and a brand new engine you built yourself, that's a nightmare. And if you look at the data from that day, it really tells a story. A lot of teams just stayed in the garage because of the rain. But Ferrari, they just kept going, racking up an incredible 121 laps. Red Bull, because of the crash, only managed 79. In a new formula where every single kilometer of data is pure gold, that's a massive head start for the prancing horse. Of course, it wasn't just Ferrari and Red Bull making headlines. This first test gave us a pretty clear, even if it's early, look at which teams have hit the ground running and which ones are already facing a serious uphill battle. Now, you might be thinking, wait, Red Bull crashed. And yeah, they did. But despite that, they have to be considered winners. Their first ever in-house power unit was the fastest car on day one. That's a dream start. Mercedes also looked incredibly solid, just eating up miles with what people are saying is the most efficient electrical system out there. And the biggest surprise? Haas. Nobody saw this coming, but they completed a staggering 154 laps on day one, proving their Ferrari power is rock solid. But on the flip side, man, it looks bleak for Williams. They missed the entire test because of production delays. That's a truly disastrous start. Audi's big, highly anticipated debut was a bit of a letdown, with technical problems keeping them in the garage. And then you have McLaren and Aston Martin, who made a huge strategic gamble by just not showing up for the first days. It's a high-risk move that could really, really backfire.
Okay, so the drama on the track is fascinating, right? But the biggest story of 2026 might be happening far away from any circuit. It's happening right now in the high-tech engine labs. A secret technical controversy is brewing that could define this entire era of Formula One.
I mean, just think about that question for a second. This is what's starting to keep rival teams up at night. There might be a loophole in the engine rules that's giving some teams a massive, maybe unbeatable advantage before a single race has even started. It all boils down to a super technical term, compression ratio. Don't worry, I'll make it simple. Basically, the more you can squeeze the mix of fuel and air before it ignites, the bigger the bang you get, which means more power. The rules seem to strictly limit this to a 16-to-1 ratio. But some clever engineers may have found a way around that.
Okay, check this out. Here's the loophole. The FIA measures the engine's compression ratio when it's cold, just sitting there. But the allegation is that some teams are using special metals that actually expand when they get hot. So while the engine is a totally legal 16-to-1 when it's cold, it becomes an 18-to-1 when it's at racing temperature on the track. The potential gain from this is absolutely enormous. We're talking up to 20 extra horsepower. That's worth maybe 0.4 of a second a lap. In F1, that's not just an advantage, that's a race-winning weapon.
And who's at the center of all this? The rumors are pointing at Mercedes and the new Red Bull-Ford partnership. Their rivals, including teams like Ferrari and Audi, have sounded the alarm, forcing an emergency meeting with the FIA to try and close this gray area. They are terrified that if this isn't stopped right now, a couple of teams could have an advantage that's locked in for the next 4 or 5 years. So, as we get closer to this new era, the picture is both incredibly exciting and totally uncertain. We have these nimbler, more aggressive cars, we've already seen drama and testing, and now there's a full-on technical arms race brewing behind the scenes. It all leaves us with one massive question hanging over everything. In this brand new world of Formula One, is the battle for the championship already being won or lost in the lab?